In this episode, we continue exploring down the Turkish coast, meet up with some new crew members and visit Kas and Kekova. Our next stop was St. Nicholas Island near Fethiye. We walked to the top of the island to watch the sunset, checking out the Byzantine ruins along the way. We then went around the corner to Coldwater Bay, famous for its cold water spring. This meant it was a popular spot for tourists and crowded with other boats until the late afternoon. Rather than getting annoyed, we made up a game of sneaking onto the different boats and jumping off their top deck. From this anchorage, we walked to the ghost town at Kekova. Greek people lived in this town for thousands of years but were exiled back to Greece in 1923 after the Greco-Turkish War. The town was then abandoned with only the concrete structures remaining, giving it a very eerie feel. There was a small restaurant at Coldwater Bay, so we had dinner there. We briefly stopped at a Ludenese, but it was way too busy, so we moved on to Butterfly Valley. The towering cliffs and beautiful beach made it one of our favourite spots so far. As we arrived there in the late afternoon, all the tourist boats had already left. We walked to a waterfall we'd heard about. The fresh water was a real treat after being salty all the time. The anchorage was very rolly, so we left on dusk, heading back to Aquarium Bay where we could pick up a mooring ball. The next day we cruised back to Fethiye as Luke was heading off to continue his travels through Europe. We'd miss his company and his help on the boat, especially swimming in our stern lines. We continued sailing southeast down the coast to Kas, with quick stops at St. Nicholas Island and Kulkan along the way. We didn't film much of the anchorage at Kas, but luckily my brother Peter, who joined us later on, captured this beautiful spot perfectly on his film camera. We headed into town to explore. Kaş turned out to be our favourite town in Turkey, with stunning surrounds, interesting architecture, a relaxed vibe and great food. From Kaş, we took a day trip to Antalya on the bus. It was a 3-hour journey, but well worth it. We also hired a car from Kaş to check out some of the other sites we'd heard about. On the way, we saw hundreds of greenhouses, all growing fruit and veggies. Our first stop was Myra, an ancient Lycian city with an impressive amphitheatre and rock tombs. We then stopped to check out the perpetual flames that burn on the side of Mount Olympus, where methane gas seeps from the earth. We checked out the coastline at Olympus, as well as the ancient Lycian city. It was then time to prepare for our next sailing adventure, including filling up our water tanks and spare bottles. Our friends Caitlin, also known as Wig, and Andy then arrived.
Very acidic.
We provisioned the boat at the market the next morning before setting sail for Kekova. At our first anchorage, we ran into our friends John and Karen on their catamaran Sea Dreamer. We also swam with a giant school of tiny fish. The next anchorage was beautiful, but the wind blew hard in the afternoon, so naturally we decided to start brewing a boat kombucha with a SCOBY given to us by a friendly restaurant owner in cash. Another obvious activity was 3D printing. One of the handles on our hatches was broken and the replacements were very expensive online. Andy kindly offered to 3D print us a new one and drew up the design and sent it to his printer back home. The next day the weather had calmed off, so we dinghied ashore to explore some Lycian ruins and had Turkish tea at the local restaurant. That afternoon we moved anchorages, then dinghied in to check out the village and have dinner at Hassan's restaurant, famous among sailors. The next morning we walked up to a castle on the hill with beautiful views over Kekova. We moved on that afternoon and got our first rain in over 3 months. We continued on to Seahorse Bay, which is shaped like a seahorse's head. It was similar to the last spot with nice water and a beautiful moonrise. We made it back to Kash in time for Victory Day, a public holiday commemorating the last battle in the Greco-Turkish War in 1922. My brother Peter arrived the next day and we took a day trip to the ancient Lycian city at Patara. Wig and Andy had booked an Airbnb in Cash, so we made the most of the facilities and the epic view. We celebrated our successful voyage with lots of great memories made, and said goodbye as we'd be heading off the following morning. The next day we cruised to a bay opposite Cash. The cliffs were stunning and we were able to pick up a mooring ball for free. Peter is a keen rock climber and decided to scale the cliff. After a quick visit, Peter took a local boat back to Cash to continue his European adventure. The next day there was a favourable southerly wind blowing, so we took the opportunity to sail 7 hours back up the coast to Fethiye.